Hi, my name is Tom Prowse and I'm a data school consultant at the Information Lab. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the differences between Tableau Prep and Salesforce Einstein Analytics. At the 2020 Tableau conference, it was announced that Salesforce and Tableau were bringing Einstein Analytics and Tableau together to form Tableau CRM. So I thought it'd be great to see what the similarities and differences are between the data preparation aspects of both of the products. Throughout the talk, I will focus on some key areas related to data preparation and how we can achieve them in both Tableau Prep and also Einstein Analytics. These key areas include inputting data, data investigation, data cleansing, combining data, and finally, outputting your cleaned data. First of all, let me introduce to you both of the products. So the first product is Tableau Prep. So I've taken a quote from the Tableau website, and they say that the tool is designed to make preparing your data easy and intuitive. You can use Tableau Prep to combine, shape, and clean your data for analysis within Tableau. I believe that Tableau have created a really intuitive and user-friendly data preparation tool, which is simple for new users to pick up and really allows you to put data preparation into the hands of the users who require it. The second tool is Salesforce Einstein Analytics. Salesforce say this is a cloud-based platform for connecting data from multiple sources, creating interactive views of that data and sharing those views in apps. Einstein Analytics is a better way to distribute insight to business users so they can understand and act on changing information. I think the final part of this quote is the key part. Allowing users to have a better understanding and act on changing information is key to why we use these tools and why they can be so effective. I'm now going to go into a bit more detail about the 5 main areas of each of the tools, starting with inputting data. So inputting your data is important when trying to bring together all of the different data sets that you might require to get a full picture of what is happening. Importing your data into Tableau Prep is important when combining different data sets to start analyzing your data. Let's take a look how this can be done. Within Tableau Prep, when it opens, we have the Connect to Data button here, which we can click, and this opens all of our different connection options. These include connecting to a data source in your Tableau server, just here. Then we have flat files, including Microsoft Excel, spatial files, and text files. And then we have a whole list of different databases which you can connect to, including Google Drive, Microsoft SQL, Postgres, Snowflake, and so on. In this example, I'm going to connect to a CSV file, so I choose a text file. This then opens my File Explorer, and I'm going to choose 2019 orders. I then press Open. This loads the connection on the left-hand side and puts my table into the workflow. From here, I can add more connections. So for example, if I was to add 2020 orders as well, I click on the plus, go to text file again, choose 2020 orders, and this then loads the second data set for me just there. From here, if I have, there's some different options on how I can set this up, including an incremental refresh if you have lots of data, and also data sampling. So you can choose a fixed number of rows or different sampling techniques if you're working with a large data set and want the performance to increase. So that's how you input data into Tableau Prep. So now let's take a look at how the same thing can be achieved within Einstein Analytics. As you can see on the screen, I'm in my Einstein Analytics Studio. And first of all, I want to use the Create button to create a new data set. So press Create and Data Set. From here, I have a few different options. So this is the equivalent of our flat files or the Tableau server or the different databases. So as you can see, we've got CSV files, Salesforce data, external data, and then our existing data sets. So it's a bit more limited than Tableau Prep, but a lot more Salesforce focused, as you would expect. For example, if I click on CSV file now, because this is what I'm going to be uploading, I can select my file, 2019 orders, press open, press next, Then this gives me a few different options if I need to change any data at all. This also gives me the option to save it in a different app. So currently in my private app, but if you need to share it, then you may choose a different app. And there's some different kind of properties relating to the CSV file. Let's press next. Now this gives you the option to view your data to see if all of the field types are correct and if you need to change any of the scales or precisions. As you can see, all of these are okay for now. However, if I wanted to scroll along, for example, and I've got sales here, I know this is probably a currency, so I could always put a currency symbol in if I wanted to. For now, I'm just going to leave it like this and press upload. This is then now uploading my data, which can take a bit of a while. So let's see how this goes. Now, as you can see, when I go to all items and then datasets, my two new datasets have been created here. So I've got 2020 orders and 2019 orders. However, these are two separate datasets at the moment. But let's just say we want to combine them and start inputting them into a workflow, just like we did within Tableau Prep. This is where we come down to the Data Manager tab. This opens up a new window, and we can go to Data Flows and Recipes. You can achieve this with a data flow, but for now I'm going to just use the recipes option. From here, I'm going to create a new recipe up in the top right by clicking this button, and then select data. So for now, I'm going to use 2019 orders. Notice how we have a sample size similar to Tableau Prep. We've only got 2,500 rows, so 5,000 will be fine. And then I can select the different options for different fields which I want to include. In this example, I'm going to include all of my different fields. As you can see, our 2019 orders are now in the workflow, so we're ready to start analyzing our data. If we were to add our 2020 data as well, we can select more data from here, choose 2020 orders, follow the same process, click next, and then this now appears as well. As you can see, both products use similar methodology to bring data into their workflows. This is important as one of the most basic steps for starting to prepare your data. So let's take a look now at how we can use these two tools to investigate our data in different ways. Now that we've inputted the data into both tools, let's go back to Tableau Prep and see how we can do some data investigation to see if the data is in the right form and to try to identify what we need to analyze and clean within our data. So going back to Tableau Prep, you'll notice how we've input both of our tables, 2019 orders and 2020, and then there's a little dotted line which says View and Clean Data. Now this has recently been added by Tableau within the Tableau Prep product to make it easier for new users to get started with the product. Now this makes it super simple and clear to show you what you actually need to do next. So we've got the plus and we've got this little prompt to help us view our data. So if I click View and Clean Data, this will load our data into some different views. So this top bit here is our profile pane, which gives us a kind of, as in the name, a profile of all of our data. And then we've got the data grid at the bottom here. So as you can see, each of our fields has been profiled depending on which values they have. So if we take order ID here, for example, this first one, CA 2019 111 00041. If I click there, we have a little bar chart to show us how many times this appears within our data set. When hovering over, notice how it appears 3 times or has 3 rows, whereas the next one down only has 1, and this one here has 5. This is also documented in the bar chart or the histogram along the side to show any outliers or to show any products with which are larger than others. So this is really good at trying to identify any errors or any outliers which we aren't expecting. Moving along, we can also choose different options. So for example, if I just wanted to see how many of my different orders have been shipped in the standard class, I can click on there, make the selection, and then we get this nice blue stacked bar chart with the grey. So the blue represents wherever there is a standard class, and the grey is just all the others. For example, this one here has all 5 rows, which are the standard class, as you'd probably expect. But going along to customer name here, you can see that 44% of Adam's orders have been shipped in standard class, and then the rest are within the different shipping modes. So this is really good at trying to identify different areas within your data, which and to investigate what's actually going on. So then you have a better understanding of what's available and what you need to clean later in the workflow. Another option which Tableau Prep provides is recommendations. So by clicking on the light bulb icon here, we can have a drop down and notice how it suggests some different ways in which we can clean our data. So for example, we can change our data role from for country and region so that it is a country and region. Same for city, same for state, and same for postal code. So this makes it really simple and really easy to try and identify errors and try and identify areas um, where we need to analyze and where we need to clean within the workflows. Along with the recommendations, you can also scroll across and, for example, postal code here, we can see there's some null values. So if I click on the 3 dots, go to detail, this is now split out every single postal code that we have. However, there's some null values, so I can click here and notice how it's filtered my data grid at the bottom. So all of these do not have a postal code. So maybe this is something that we need to investigate further and maybe do some analysis or do some data cleaning to solve this later in the workflow. For now, that's all I'm going to talk about within the data investigation part of Tableau Prep. As you can see, it's super simple, super easy, and really clear when you're trying to identify different errors. So let's take a look how this compares within Einstein Analytics. As you can see, we've got both of our order tables for 2019 and 2020. So let's click on 2019 and see what data investigation can be done. Once clicked on the table, we have this pane at the bottom appear, which gives us some information about the data table, about the location and when it was created. And we've also got our data grid, which provides us for more information about what the data actually is. So as you can see, we've got a preview. So this previews all of our columns and the data which is in it. So each individual row and what it is comprised of. We can also view just the columns. So this is kind of like a metadata view. So we have, if we've got lots of different metrics, we can go through them nice and quick. So going back onto the preview pane, we can click on different orders or different fields. And over in the right-hand corner here, we have open the column profile. So if we want to see kind of a profile of each of the different fields, we can click here. This opens up this column section here where you can see it gives us a bit more of a profile about what the data is actually there. So for example, we've got a 2000 row sample, so not all of our data is going to be shown, but this gives us an idea of any missing values, so if there's any nulls, and what values are frequently kind of appearing. So this is similar to the bar charts within Tableau Prep, where it's a little bit different because it's a sorted bar chart and it just shows us all of the different values, whereas within Tableau Prep it was maybe sorted in a different way and we had the histogram. But this is a good way of indicating what values are actually there, and if there are any outliers or if there are any values which aren't which we aren't expecting to be there. Note that we can only see one subcategory at a time. So for example, we can't click or show any interaction with the bar chart here. So we can hover over and get a count of the values, but that's about it. So if we were going to look at a different category, we would need to click on that category, then this would update. One final thing to notice is because it's sampled data, if you remember back into the Tableau Prep, we had some nulls in our postcode. However, because we've only got a 2000 row sample, it's not actually picking up those zeros or those null values for us. So this is something to be aware of when trying to investigate your data within Einstein, is that sometimes you are going to miss some values because of the sampling. but that improves performance. So this is going to be a trade-off depending on what you prefer and what you need. We can finally just see the attributes as well. So we can have a quick view of the column type and things like that. So that's everything for the investigation with Einstein. As you can see, Tableau Prep is a little bit more in depth, and you can actually have some different use cases within Tableau Prep. So it's a bit more substantial compared to Einstein. But this does give you a nice value, a nice breakdown of what's missing, any zeros. But that sampling is going to be a bit of an issue if you've got lots of data. So that's it for the investigation. As you can see, both tools allow you to investigate your data to try and identify some areas which could be problematic, which you could need to analyze and clean later in your workflow. Now that we've inputted and investigated our data, it's now time to take a look at what I would call the key reasons why we use these types of products is to clean data. So let's see how both products compare in cleansing of data and some different manipulations to help make our data useful for further analysis. So let's start and see the sort of things you can do within Tableau Prep. As you can see, we've got our same tables here for 2019 and 2020 orders, and I've got my first clean step. So as we identified earlier, we have some nulls within the postcode field. So maybe we want to actually filter and exclude these nulls from our analysis so that we don't get any problems in a later stage. So simply we can do this by clicking on the null values and then going up to here and pressing exclude. This has now removed those null values from our data, and any further analysis after this, they will be removed from our data set. So that's really simple. It makes it really easy for us. Another example of filtering could be, let's just say we only want to see sales which are over 100. So to do this on the sales field, we can press on the three dots, choose filter, and then we've got some different options here. So we could have used null values before. We can use calculation. We've got selected values, which you can do manually. And finally, we've also got range of values. So if I choose range of values, we get this little dialog box, which we can set an individual range. We can also do minimum and maximum. So I'm going to choose minimum, then type 100, press done, and notice how all of my fields or all of my sales now are greater than 100. So again, this is another way of filtering out our data. All of these changes can be shown using the changes panel on the left-hand side, just here. Notice how both of our filters have now appeared within this changes, so we can go back and rearrange these and have an audit trail of what changes we have done throughout the process, which is super useful, especially when handing over projects to other people or trying to remember what you've actually done earlier in the workflow. The next thing that we can do with in terms of cleansing is start some calculations. So these are super useful when doing custom calculations which aren't actually available within your original data set. So again, I'm going to use sales. So notice how we've got sales here and we've also got quantity. So if I just use detail. So on some of the orders, we have multiple items which have been sold. So quantity. So let's just see if we can do a calculation to see the sales per item. So all we need to do here is click on the three dots, go down to custom calculation, and this opens up the calculation window, which is similar to Tableau Desktop if you've used that before. So I'm going to give this a title or a name, sales per item. And then within the dialog box here, it's really simple. So I've already got sales in there. I'm going to divide this by my quantity. Notice how there are lots of different calculations and different syntaxes which you can use. All of these are available here. You can click on any of them and it gives you a short description and a bit of an example to get the syntax correct. But for now, this is just a simple calculation. So I've got my sales divided by my quantity, which gives us my sales per item. I can press save. And this has now created a new column just here, which is my sales per item. But let's just say I want to go a bit further and I actually want to rank these sales per item from highest to lowest. You'll notice now that they're all a bit mixed up. Let's just say I want a nice rank. So I can press on 3 dots, create a calculator field, and then I have rank. Now this opens up a slightly different calculation window, which is a nice visual editor. So as you can see, we can group by, so maybe I want to rank my sales for each category or for each customer, for example. But for now, I'm just going to do it across the whole table. And then I can choose different ranks. So I can use a dense rank, which won't skip numbers. So I just have a true 1, 2 continuous numbers. And then I can choose a different field. And I also go from high to low or low to high. So from this example, I want to go from high to low. So I'm just going to press enter. Oh, I'll just give it a name and call this sales per item rank. Press done. And there we've now created another field. The final main aspect of cleansing within Tableau Prep is looking at string calculations. So as you'll notice, if I just scroll along, we've got a customer name here. So maybe we want to split it out into first and second name, whereas it's just a single, both names together at the moment. So again, we can press on the 3 dots. We have option to split. So we can do a custom split, so we can get a bit more kind of into detail and then say we want to split on specific delimiters. But for now, we're just going to use automatic split. And then notice how this has created 2 new columns, first name and last name. So that's super useful. Finally, the last thing you can do with, one of the other things which you can do with the string calculations is actually with groupings. So we can group values. If, for example, we've got some spelling mistakes or some typos, we can actually group things by different values. So these are super useful and gets rid of a lot of the manual work. So for example, pronunciation, and this will group some states together which are pronounced kind of similar, which maybe isn't useful in this aspect, but it can be good if you've got different spelling mistakes and things like that. You can also change with a few things with clean here. So we can change uppercase, lowercase, and we can also remove numbers and letters and things like that. So we've got lots of functionality here to clean different aspects depending on what your use cases are. So it's quite thorough, and it gives you a lot of the different options which you require. And most of these are native within Tableau Prep, so it's all clicks of a button, and you don't really need to do any set written calculations depending on your use cases, which is super useful, especially for first-time users and for people who aren't necessarily familiar with the syntax of different calculations. So now we focused on the cleansing within Tableau Prep. Let's take a look at how we can do the same things or similar things within Einstein Analytics. So now back into Einstein, we've still got our 2 tables here, 2019 and 2020 orders. So let's see if we can do some of the similar cleaning techniques that we've just done within Tableau Prep. So first up, we want to filter our 2019 table. So we can press on the plus just here. And this opens up a menu where we can add a few different nodes. So one of these nodes is our filter. So if we press filter, this will load up some of our data for us and some different filters. So once this is loaded, we can obviously see all of our data here. Now the first filter we'd used in Tableau Prep was to filter out any null values from our postcode. So what we can do is press on the plus, and this gives us the option to choose which field we want to filter. So we go down and choose postal code, and then we've got how do we want to filter this. So in our case, we can scroll down. I want to filter it and keep if it is not null. Click apply. Then that has filtered our table. It doesn't look too different now because there was only a few values which were null within our postcode. We can also do our second filter, which is another plus, and this time it's on sales. And now we can choose greater than or equal to, and then type in our number. We want it to be greater than or equal to 100. Press apply, and notice how this is now our data, and if I scroll along, all of our sales are above 100. And I can press apply, and now this has created our filter step, and we've got our kind of what filter and our audit trail, similar to Tableau actually, so we can actually see what we've done, and we can remove these if we've made a mistake. Next, we want to look at some calculations. So again, we're going to add another node with the plus and then transform. Again, this opens up a similar kind of view to our filter, but this time we've got a slightly different toolbar at the top where we've got some different techniques to clean things. So our first thing we need to do, like we did in Tableau Prep, was to create a sales per item field. So if I choose sales here and then go up to my the F and X here, which is our calculations. So we've got date and time, so we can put date time now. We've got custom formula, so we're going to choose custom formula. This opens up the calculation editor where we can choose columns. Wait for this to load. I write in sales, so we want our sales. We can insert that into our formula here, and we want quantity. We need to divide it by quantity, just like that. We want our output type to be numeric. We want it to be to 2 decimal places, and we want to create a new column, and we want to call this sales per item. Press apply. And now notice if I scroll along, we now have our sales per item field, which is very similar to Tableau Prep. So doing simple calculations like this are pretty similar. Next, we want to split our name field, our customer name. So we've got first name and last name. Again, we can select our customer name, and then up here we have substring and split. So split is what we want to do here. So we want to do first name and last name and split with the space. So if I choose split, we have a few different options here. So we can choose our delimiter. So these are kind of some common ones, but we can also do a custom one. In this case, we want to use a space, and then we can give it a different name. So this is going to be our customer first name and customer last name. Apply. And if I scroll along to the end, this is our 2 new fields. So again, this is fairly similar to Tableau Prep. You have a bit more control in terms of you can't do the automatic splits, so you actually have to choose your delimiter within Einstein, but this is similar to a custom split within Tableau Prep. Finally, just to show some other string calculations which you can do, we can change the case to upper and lower case. However, this is the only things we can do in terms of we can't remove punctuation and things like that. We'd actually have to write a calculation if that's the case. So it's maybe a little bit harder for first-time users to pick up compared to Tableau Prep. So that's just a few different techniques which we can have in comparison to Tableau Prep and Einstein. If I collapse this, notice how we've got our steps here, similar to Tableau in Tableau Prep where we have the steps, but this time we've got it which is split out a little bit more. So we've got our filter and our transform. So this could be good for when you're handing over workflows and things like that to other people, because you've got nice documented and see each step of the way which can happen. I think within Einstein, it's a lot more reliant on kind of calculations and different syntaxes. So we've got the EA SQL. So potentially this could be a bit harder to pick up, but there's lots of really good documentation within the Salesforce website. So you can pick up different examples and do a lot of the cleaning, which you could probably do within Tableau Prep as well, depending on the use cases, of course. But this is quite a good all-round kind of for the more simple things, especially. And it's really good that you can have like single clicks for upper and lower case and splits like that. Now that we have finished cleansing our data, it's time to move on to our next section, which is all about combining different data sources. So let's take a look at how we can do that within Tableau Prep. As you can see, we've still got our workflow where we've cleaned our data and filtered as required. But now let's say we want to include 2019 and 2020. Now both of these tables have the same structure, so therefore we want to essentially stack these on top of each other so we can use the union tool. Now we want to do this before our clean step so that we can then make all of the changes to all of the tables. So I'm going to take my 2020 orders here and click and drag over to 2019 and drop it onto Union. As you can see, the Union changes color when I'm hovering over. So if I can press Union there and then drop, this automatically creates a Union field or a Union tool, which will stack our tables on top of each other. Notice how we've got 2019 and 2020 orders just here. Now the fields match up exactly, so that's perfect for what we want. For now, we can remove the table names because we're not too worried about where they come from. We now want to put this clean step onto this union. So we can do that by removing the branch here, taking the union, dragging it onto the add part of the clean step. We can drop it here, and we've now got our workflow. So this is now cleaning all of the steps that we used earlier. So we split the names and things like that, but this is for both 2020 and for 2019. So this is going to save us a lot of time, so we don't have to repeat all the processes, and we've combined both of our data sets together. We also have a third data set over here, which is our returns. So if I drag this in, you'll notice that within this table, we have a list of order IDs and if they were returned. So maybe we want to include these and only include orders or to see if they've been returned or not. So to do this, I'm going to join this onto my workflow. So to do this, I'm going to take my clean from the returns, drag this over to my initial clean. I'm going to then drop it onto join. This now makes a join tool, and we're joining between the order ID from both the 2019 orders and 2020 orders and the returns. Now you'll notice how this is where you set your join clause. So at the moment we want it to be join ID. So order ID equals order ID, which is great. This is where you control the type of join which you have. At the moment it's inner join, so it's only joining when the order ID is equal to the order ID in both tables. However, in this case, we want to include all of the orders that we have done, and not just the ones which have been returned. So therefore, I can press and click in the outside circle of clean one, the green one, which is coming from my orders workflow. And now you can see the shading has changed, and this is now a left join, so it's including all of our orders. So now if I press clean, you can see our data. If I scroll along here, we now have if it's returned or not. Notice how we'll have nulls. So these are actually orders which haven't been returned. So I can double click, replace null with no. And then this is our second order ID, which we no longer need because this is coming from the returns table. So I can remove that as well. So we've now combined both our orders and returns, and this gives us a much better picture of what has been returned and what hasn't. The final thing we need to do here is, as you can notice within the join, it shows you how many of our join results. And you'll notice we've gone from 2,181 rows to 2,773. So that means there's probably some duplicates within the returns table. So what we can do here is click in between on the branch and bring in an aggregate tool. Within the aggregate tool, we can bring in order ID and returned. So this is going to group and return one row for each order ID. So if there's any duplicates, this will only return a single row. I can then go onto our join and notice how we're only getting 2,181 rows returned, which is what we would expect, and there's no duplication. And this is so now our data is fully combined and we're ready to analyze it, which includes the orders. So that's how we combine data within Tableau Prep. As you can see, it's really visual and really easy, especially within the join tool, where you have the visual aids on the Venn diagram to show you what you're joining and what's actually being included and not. I feel it's really simple and makes it really user friendly, because sometimes joins can be really hard to understand what's actually being joined and what's being included or left out. So hopefully this makes it really super easy for everyone. So that's how we combine data within Tableau Prep. So let's see what we can do in Einstein Analytics. First up, we're going to combine our 2019 and 2020 orders. So before we use a union, this time we're going to use an append. They're just named slightly differently. First up, we want to press the plus within the connection from our 2019 orders to our filter. There we can use an append. We can then choose our 2020 orders, press next, and then notice this will allow us to line up the correct fields in each of the tables. It looks like these are fine for now because they've both got the same structure. So we can press apply. And now this is creating an append tool within our existing workflow. So we can actually delete this 2020 orders now because we've got a new one in here. So this is flowing as we would expect, just like we did in Tableau Prep. So now we want to join our returns. So we can press the plus here on the end of our transform, press join. We can then choose our Superstore returns, press next. Now, this is similar to Tableau Prep where you have the different types of joins. We have a little bit less functionality here because we're kind of stuck with left, right, inner, and outer. So we don't have the interactivity with the Venn diagrams like we do, but this is the same type of scenario. We also have the lookup version, which we don't have in Tableau Prep. So this includes all rows from recipe data, which is our initial workflow, and only matching rows from the Superstore returns. So if there's multiple matches are found, return one matching row. So this will help with any duplicates and things like that. But for now, we're going to use our left join, just like we did before. We can scroll down to the bottom and notice how there's the tick boxes to include certain fields. So right at the bottom, we have our returned. This is our yes or our null, so we want to include that, but we don't need to include order ID. I press apply. Now you can see we've got our join. So we've joined our returns to our orders workflow. So we can now press the plus, add another transform to see our data. As you can see, if we scroll across, we don't actually have anything from the returned here, so it's blank. So these are the ones that haven't been returned, but it could be quite nice to return a no. So we can click on returned, we go to replace, we click search for null within the find, so that's going to find all the null values, and then we want to replace that with no. We can add the value here by pressing the plus. We want to show the results in the original column. We can then press apply. Wait for this to load, because this is now going through and replacing all of our null values with a no. And here we are. If we scroll right across, we now have our returned yes or no. So that's how you combine data from different data sources within Einstein Analytics. As you can see, it's fairly similar to Tableau Prep with the joins, and we've got unions/appends. This is a little bit less flexible because in terms of how you organize your workflow, you almost need to know what you want to do before, so then you can plan and do it step by step. Now, the final area which I'm going to talk about within this talk and compare the different features is the output step. So let's take a look at what output options we have for Tableau Prep. So now that we've got our full workflow, we need to be able to output our data and use it somewhere else. So if it's in Tableau Desktop or I don't know, as a CSV or to a database or something like that. So by pressing on the plus, we have an option to output our data. So with the output step, we have a few different options. So the first one is to save it as a file. Now we can do it as a Tableau hyper extract or a CSV. So we've got the two options there. On this drop down, we also have the choice to do a publish data source. This will be able to publish our data up to a Tableau server. So then as a data source, then other people within our organization can use it as long as they have permission. And then finally, we've got database table. So if I just click through here, this will allow us to write to a database. So as you can see, we've got a few different connections here, a lot of the main ones. So we've got SQL servers, Postgres, and Snowflake. This will allow you to directly write to a table, to a database table. You can overwrite and things like that. So that gives you a lot of kind of flexibility in terms of the functionality of writing to databases. So then once you've finished, you can just run your workflow, and this will update for you depending on what you've outputted. So that's the main thing with Tableau's outputs. Obviously, the output step is quite a simple one, but it gives you the flexibility to be able to use your data in other places and to analyze it in different ways. So that's it with Tableau Prep. Let's take a look at what we can do within Einstein Analytics. Now within the output, this is where Einstein is a little bit more limited to Tableau Prep. Because it is a Salesforce product, you can only output to your Salesforce system. So you can't output to a database or a kind of a flat file like you could with Tableau Prep. Let's have a look and see what we can do with the output. So again, we press on the plus and then choose the output step at the bottom. From here, this is just going to be our data table, so we can give it a name. So let's call it orders and return. Make sure we give it a API name as well. We can see what location do we want to do it to save it in. So this is a different app if we want to share it. And yeah, we can also do for different Salesforce objects and things like that. We can also add in row level security. I'm not going to put any of these in them now, but we can be quite specific in what users can see what data. So that's really useful when sharing things. So let me press apply. This has now created our output step. And all we need to do is just save and run up in the top. And then this will go to our run and be part of our kind of our monitor tab to see when it's finished. So that's all we've got for the output with Einstein Analytics. Obviously, it's a lot less because it's all Salesforce based. So you get a lot more flexibility with Tableau Prep. But hopefully this video has given you a bit of an insight into how the two products are fairly similar in some ways and how they differ and how they are different in other ways. As you can see, probably Tableau and Einstein are going to be coming closer and closer together, especially with the release of Tableau CRM. So it'll be really interesting to see some overlaps for both products and how they influence each other. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you have a little bit more of a better understanding about Tableau Prep and Einstein Analytics now. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and take a look at the recommended videos to find out more.